I can think of no better Christmas present for the American people than giving you a massive tax cut. That's what's happening. And your Senate and your House, hopefully, very shortly, will have those approvals. Those hands will go up, and you're going to be paying a lot less tax.
President Trump pulling out all the stops to pump tax cuts. He says they'll build America up. But then you have House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi suggesting this is what will happen if Republicans get their way.
This is Armageddon. This is a very big deal because you know why? There's really a very hard way to come back from this. They take us further, more deeply into debt. What can you do but raise taxes?
Armageddon? Really? Hi, everybody. I'm Dagan McDowell. This is Bulls and Bears. The Bulls and Bears this week, Gary B. Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Stacey Washington and Adrian Elrod. Welcome to everybody. John, Armageddon, really?
This political talk has reached a new level of crazy. Where was this doomsday prediction when Nancy Pelosi, with the rest of her Congress, Republicans and Democrats, watched debt go from $5 trillion in 2000 to over $20 trillion today? Where is this doomsday apocalyptic vision that she has when she's saying that debt is going to be $10 trillion more in the next decade? So we're looking at $31 trillion in debt, according to all CBO predictions. She's talking about $1 trillion added onto that. So you're ignoring 96% of our deficit, talking about doomsday predictions with this. Look, I've looked at the 4 major tax cuts the last 100 years. The closest to this is probably the 1960s because you had a decent economy like we do now. Then you had the tax cuts of Kennedy carried out by LBJ. GDP went to over 6% for 2 straight years, and Treasury revenue increased. This apocalyptic vision is showing an ignorance of history, or choosing to ignore it, I should say.
Stacey, why the fear-mongering and the scare tactics? Because the Democrats know that this is a win for Republicans.
Dagan, this is their play. Come on. So we're talking about a major overhaul of our tax system, and it's a win for the Republicans, and it's something that the president ran on. So he's been running with this ball. He's getting it over the finish line. He's got the Congress working together for the first time in his entire presidency, and they don't want that. So what are they going to say? Armageddon. You know what looks like Armageddon if that's what this is? A lot of people out shopping, happy smiling faces. Even Democrats are enjoying themselves. I was out shopping today, lines wrapped around the building. The GDP is through the roof. Joblessness claims are down. Everything's looking rosy. So if that's what Armageddon looks like, bring it on, baby. I'm loving it.
Right. A plague of locusts, Gary B. It's going to start raining frogs with consumer confidence, 17-year high. Unemployment rate, 17-year low. Stock market, all-time high. You name it, the economy is in fuego.
Absolutely, and I think this the tax plan is the way to go. Look, I think the most unbiased source is the Tax Foundation. They've run a scenario as best they can because, you know, obviously the bill is not done. But everyone paying federal income tax gets cuts, and this is not a tax cut for the rich. This is a tax cut that actually the biggest percentage cuts go to moderate income families with children. That middle class that everyone talks about, they get the biggest percentage. The Tax Foundation's run a scenario, if you're single with 2 kids earning $50,000 a year, you get a 36% cut. That's fantastic. Look, even if Pelosi wanted to fix the debt, you could raise taxes to 100%. And you're not going to pay off the deficit that we have. The only way to do that is to cut back on entitlements. Giving people the money that they earn, giving them back more of it is a great thing. Cutting the deficit is a whole nother kit and caboodle. That needs to be tackled separately. That's what I'm hoping Ryan and McConnell can tackle next.
Adrian, I know why Nancy Pelosi is acting like the sky has fallen, because this Republican plan of really sticks it to her constituents and high-income earners in blue states by getting rid of the state and local tax deductions. So maybe her donations are going to dry up because these people are going to get hit with higher taxes.
Look, you know, first of all, this bill, what we're not talking about here is the fact that this bill does raise taxes on over half of middle-class families. So that's one issue. Secondly, the process for getting this bill passed lacks so much transparency. We now know that lobbyists on K Street were oftentimes getting copies of the bill as it was changing throughout the course of several days before Senate Democrats were getting copies of it. So I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out what's actually in this 500-page bill,
well,
plus bill, and how it's going to impact.
I'm going to correct you on something. The tax, this issue of taxes going up for half of people, that's because these tax cuts expire. We're talking about 10 years from now. In fact, every scenario modeled, which Gary B. was talking about, every scenario model includes a reduction in tax liability. So again, that's scare tactics, and that's not the whole truth that you just told.
Well, I don't know that these are necessarily scare tactics. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out what's actually in the content of the bill, since it was written so hastily. There was a lack of transparency, lack of a true committee process throughout the entire process of getting this bill passed. So, again, we're still trying to figure out what in the world is in this thing, but we do know that corporations have a major tax cut.
Because people get more of their money back. How has the world come to an end that corporations will be given incentives to create jobs in this country?
Are we talking about the Obama stimulus plan with the we don't know what's in it, or the health care thing, or the it's going to be financial Armageddon? Look, it's the same arguments other sides using for the essentially the same thing to the budget. First of all, to Pelosi's point that it's you don't get out of it. Like you just said, you get out of it because all these half-baked tax plans expire half of it because they can't do it over more than 10 years. So it's going to get out of itself, just like the Bush tax cuts at some point. That all said, the reality is, look, if you do a tax cut, it doesn't pay for itself, or you would do twice as big a tax cut, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? It pays for some of it with stimulus. When you do a stimulus package and hand out money to people like the Obamacare stimulus, some of that comes back in economic activity. When you pay someone to buy a cash for clunker, you get more cars bought. But both cause deficits to go up over time, and that is only going to be addressed by major cuts, to Gary's point. These are both the Obama stimulus plan and this tax cut are actually very small in relation to our economy. Other countries have done bigger things. China's stimulus during the crash was much bigger relative to ours. We have to deal with these other issues. We're kind of fighting over a relatively small issue here.
But, John, if Nancy Pelosi is going to scream about the coming apocalypse, she ought to look back at at the 2 terms of President Obama where the debt doubled and they raised taxes on people, and we never even had growth of 3% in any one given calendar year.
Yeah, we had 10 straight years, which is a record and since we've been measuring GDP, of under 3% growth. And the debt did double under President Obama. It doubled under President Bush, too. And Nancy Pelosi said nothing about it. When you pass the health care bill, like Jonah said, they're the ones said, let's pass it and then see what's in it. It's very simple. You got a 20% corporate tax rate. They finally did something right. Look, I'm not defending the Republicans. I think they're just about as bad or just as bad as the Democrats. I don't like politicians. I'm like America that has a brain. I think I have a disagreement with Washington, D.C., but they've done something that is actually going to stimulate the economy, lowering the corporate tax rate because it's going to help small business.
Stacey, final word.
Look, I encourage everybody to go to taxplancalculator.com. You can type in your own real numbers from last year, and you can see what your current tax was. It should match up with your taxes. What your tax would be under the House plan, what your tax would be under the Senate plan. We ran the numbers before they made the changes. We've run the numbers since. My husband and I are standing to save money. We're not in that lower middle income area. We're still going to save money on this plan. Don't believe the hype. It's not true. That they've actually come up with something that it's not everything I wanted, Dagan, but it's really great.
Thank you, guys and gals.